there's not many places in the UK that I'd be able to go that would be better than this. You know, send those emails. Like, but yeah, the worst thing you're going to get is a no. Just send somebody else an email. Just keep trying. It is possible. Yes.
Hello and welcome to this shorter highlights version of episode 4 of Creative Careers, featuring Fiona at the Falconry Centre. Now hopefully you have seen the full version. There is a link to it available in the description. It's on my channel. If you're interested in any of the main themes, whether that's working with wildlife, birds, volunteering, the charity sector, all of those things, it's a great episode. But I've created this shorter version just to help you if you've just got a passing interest in some of the main themes. If you are an existing subscriber to my channel, thank you so much. If not, please do click on the subscribe link below. That way you get all future episodes just free. They just come into your inbox. You get notifications of them. You don't have to do anything. It only takes a couple of seconds. And please do share this project, share the videos with anybody that you feel would benefit from careers advice, guidance, inspiration, particularly if they're creative. It is a free resource. It is designed mainly to help young people, but people of all ages really who are looking for some guidance and inspiration. So thank you for that. With that, on with the highlights episode. Hello.
Hiya.
Hi, morning.
Fiona.
Lovely to see you.
Nice to meet you.
I've
Come on
brought
in.
the weather with me today.
Yeah, I know,
so.
it's horrible.
Fiona Garvey has worked at the Falconry Centre for 6 years, having started out in a voluntary capacity. I was keen to get a sense of how the opportunity had come about and where her love of wildlife had originated from.
It starts off, I finished uni, I had no idea what to do with myself. I'd had 6 months completely unemployed. I just couldn't get work. Even McDonald's didn't want me. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. And to cheer myself up, I bought myself a Groupon voucher. It was £19 for 2 hours falconry. And it was just a random thing I clicked on. And when I did it, I just thought, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever done. And I didn't even know it was a thing. So I volunteered with that company.
So how old were you then? When did this?
I suppose I was about 23 or 4, something like that. Yeah, it was just something I'd never experienced. I didn't even know you could do. I didn't know it was a job. And it was just the greatest thing I'd ever done. So I just thought, how can I do this? So yeah, after a year of voluntary, because they are quite hard to look after, it's not something I'd ever say, yeah, just go out there and buy a bird. That's when I decided to get my own barn owl. And it's a working partnership, so we did birthday parties and weddings and things like that. So
Fiona's passion for wildlife, especially birds, arose as a result of her falconry experience as an adult, and there had been little to suggest that she would go down such a path while she was at school. The key to turning what was essentially a hobby or passing interest into a career lay in the pursuit of voluntary work, something that is often overlooked when it comes to careers.
I suppose it was easier then, which is making me sound and feel really old, but I think it was easier. Nowadays, I think it's going to be quite hard to find somewhere that will take you. Like here, we get quite a lot of inquiries from people doing work experience and stuff, and we can't do it. It's, you're working with dangerous animals, you're working with raw meat. I just can't have very young people coming and doing it. But I suppose you just can't be squeamish. So that's your main thing. I suppose my mindset would be perhaps don't be really fussy, and certainly don't be discouraged, because there are places that, like we say no to a 14-year-old, but then the same 14-year-old has come back to me at 16 and I can say yes.
Right.
And then we've taken them on. And during that time, perhaps they found somewhere else that's willing to take someone younger, and perhaps it wasn't birds of prey, it wasn't what they wanted to do, but it was reptiles, or it was cows, or, you know, so they've still worked with animals, and it still gives you an idea of roughly what you're going to be doing, how hard work it is it for you, and then you can specialise into something that's a little bit harder to get into, like birds of prey. You're going to get mucky, basically. It's going to happen. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of sort of poo and raw meat, regardless of, if you want to work with predators, that's what you've got to do, isn't it? So yeah, you can't be squeamish in that regards, and yeah, you just got to be brave, I guess. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You email somewhere and they say no. Doesn't matter. Email somewhere else. Just keep going, basically. Morning, all.
Despite the weather, Fiona showed me around some of the aviaries where the birds were sheltering from the rain. I was curious to understand how she'd made the transition from her voluntary work to that of a full-time position.
Morning, Stitches. Hello, sweets. So this is one of our Rupert's griffon vultures that I told you about. So we've got Stitches' mum and dad, so Nip and Tuck and Stitches.
Okay.
So any babies that Nip and Tuck have in the future, they'll go off to Africa for re-release and breeding programs. And Stitches has got a girlfriend lined up as well.
Oh, okay.
So
that's
we've
exciting.
got, I know, it's really nice. It worked out really well because we DNA tested Stitches and he was a male.
Right.
And then we knew another falconry centre that had Rupels that would be willing to be part of the programme as well. But theirs was called Harry. So they DNA tested theirs and it's a Harriet. So it worked out really well. So I like the experiences. That's my favourite bit, is getting people up close and personal with these absolutely incredible animals that you don't normally get to be that close with, and ticking bucket lists. You know, I have had people on experiences where, you know, the owl lands on their glove and they just burst into tears because it's something they've always wanted to do and they can't believe how beautiful they are, and it's just nice to be able to give that moment. It's my favourite bit.
How much training is involved with actually handling the birds themselves, and obviously some of the demonstrations there? You've got all sorts of different birds, as you said.
Still going.
Right.
I'm still learning. It never stops. I think every bird is different. They're all completely different personalities, and you have to handle them in completely different ways.
Right.
So I guess it just depends on how much you want to do. So I volunteered obviously a year and a half somewhere else, and then I volunteered here for a year and a half. So I had 3 years under my belt. And after 3 years, I was running experiences. Because before I worked here, I did a few experiences, and I was flying a couple of the small eagles. So it is possible just through voluntary to be able to handle some of the bigger birds if you're good at it. But it took me 4 years to learn how to fly a falcon.
Right.
Because I just wasn't very good at it. So each bird is completely different. My boss actually got me my own eagle, because I was quite frightened of some of the other eagles here.
Right.
And he was like, well, if we get you your own, then you can train it the way you want to. And he specifically chose me an eagle that would be slightly aggressive. And then once I was sort of done training her, and I'd sort of faced my fears almost, he was just like, well, if you can handle that eagle, you can definitely handle the rest of them, because she's nastier than these ones. It was an interesting training method, but it did work.
Do you have ties with any other groups or organisations at all?
Yeah, so we work with Project Lugger. So they work with a specific type of falcon called the Lugger falcon, and they are they were in quite a rapid decline of numbers, mostly due to misinformation. So people hunting and eating their food source, and a big thing was out in the Middle East there's quite a big market for falcons, and they can be quite expensive. But Lugger falcons are not one of the expensive falcons. So they are captured and then used as bait for larger, more expensive falcons to then be sold on in the Middle East. It's not a nice practice. So we work with them to try and obviously educate people to say, yeah, this isn't a nice thing to do. There are other ways to earn money. We also work with Volpro. They're a vulture conservation charity in Africa. So they've expressed interest in a few of our breeding pairs of vultures. And we've basically said that in the future, if any of our pairs of vultures breed, we would donate the babies to them. Okay. And then they can send them over to Africa for either breeding programs or re-release. which is really, really good because vultures are pretty much all critically endangered. So anything we can do to boost their numbers is great.
Maybe this is a generalisation, but you sort of think people are quite sort of hardy and tough because they're wild animals. Is it quite typical that actually behind that some people are a bit nervous, or does that vary?
I should imagine so. It's probably something you don't really let on. But I have no problem talking about it because I think it's quite normal and human. You know, the more you learn about these animals, the more you learn what they can do, and it's absolutely incredible. I used to work with a golden eagle, and she had the same amount of power in her feet as 2 German shepherd bites. You know, so if she wanted to, she's just sitting on my glove, but she could just break my hand through the glove, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I suppose it's that thought that made me a little bit wary, but you do just have to face it because they're more scared of you than you are of them for most of these big birds, and most of the time they're just not like that. It's not really in their nature. There are a few aggressive birds, of course there are. It's like they've got different personalities. But Cash is one of our Tasmanian eagle owls, and he's quite a good one to get out at this time in the morning because he's very good at sitting still and looking lovely. So you won't expect to fly.
He doesn't look quite so bedraggled.
No, he's quite good at actually staying out of the rain.
Right.
It's quite helpful. So Cash has been here longer than I have, haven't you? So he's 29, this one.
Oh, wow.
So the bigger the bird, the longer they live. So something Cash's size is about 35 in captivity. So.
Right, that's typical lifespan.
Yeah. So that'd be quite a good age.
Yeah.
Having learned so much about Fiona's journey, I was keen to find out how she viewed her future, and also if she had any advice for young people looking to forge a career working with wildlife.
I am one of the directors, I am a trustee. I get to decide what birds we have, what birds we breed, how things work, or at least help with the decisions. Obviously it's not just me, but so that's quite nice. So I suppose that's where I see myself, and hopefully in 10 years time my own child will be at school and I can go back full time. So have a little bit more input. And fingers crossed, a few of the birds that I put in for breeding will have had babies. That'll be flying.
If you were to offer up some advice based on your experience, what would that be?
I suppose the main thing would just be just go for it. Just ask. It's never too late to change your mind. I did a sociology degree. I have been in so many different sectors. As I've done retail, I've done customer service, I've done faults, I've done telecoms, teaching, and none of them really sat with me. I didn't sit in a job for more than 18 months before here, and I always used to just do this on the side. And then I thought to myself one day, like, why? This is the thing I love the most. Why am I only doing it as a side? So yes, it doesn't pay as well, but that's a sacrifice I wanted to make to enjoy my life and to enjoy my career. So, send those emails. Like, the worst thing you're going to get is a no. Just send somebody else an email. Just keep trying. It is possible. Yes.
And does it actually feel like a job? Or
No,
is
not at all. No, I love coming to work. So I've mentioned before that obviously I've just had my own baby. I was still working here 6 days before I was due, and everyone was like, "Oh, don't you want to go on maternity leave?" No, I didn't want to stop working, and then I came back to work when she was 6 weeks old because it's not work. It's lovely. Every day is completely different, and as I've managed to go from just a volunteer to a director and a trustee of this centre, so I get to decide how it develops, and it's just lovely seeing it change every day.
Fortunately, a week or two later, I was able to pay a second visit to the centre, where the weather was kinder and I was able to see some of the demonstrations for myself.
The infamous twit-to-woo we seem to associate with every owl on the planet, but actually the only owl in the entire world that twit-to-woos is a tawny owl. Nothing else does it. So if you've heard a twit-to-woo or a combination, if you get
Well, as you can see, it's a much nicer day today. I've returned and I was able to see one of the flying shows. Obviously, for people who have got a real passion for animals, for wildlife, particularly obviously in this case birds of prey, there are many paths through education, obviously taking subjects like biology and through to college and university. You know, opportunities for travel and things like that. But what really came across here in Fiona's case was that for her it was something that was never really an interest through childhood. It was something that cropped up later in life through a chance encounter, you know, an opportunity with one of these Groupon experiences. And I think it just goes to show, and this is really my takeaway message, that you're never too old to discover what it is that you really want to do in life.